Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, has not had the most successful decade, but here on What If Kaiju we treat this beloved defender with the respect he deserves. In this What If series we place him within the financially successful MonsterVerse to see how he'd evolve and interact with other titans. For all the backstory you may have missed, you can check out the links to the first 3 parts in the description below, or check out the following. For those acquainted with the series, I am going to give a brief recap as to what is going on. Yeah, that pretty much sums up everything. While Ghidorah's quick death in the second part, I doubt humanity, or Apex for that matter, would totally understand Ghidorah's insane regenerative abilities. Meaning a big enough power source, like the reactor meant to fuel Apex's main facility and charge Mechagodzilla, would probably be enough to supercharge the cells within an extra Ghidorah skull, and bring the draconic tyrant back to life for a vengeful round 2. A second round with Mechagodzilla by his side against an already battle-weary Godzilla. Mothra's aid, while appreciated, can't overcome the turning tide in this destructive 2v2. After a defiant last stand, Mothra is atomized by a proton stream. Scales and ash fall upon Godzilla, who is quickly set upon by Ghidorah, still hungry for power. Sadly, there are no allies here to prevent the inevitable. While imbued with immense power from Mothra's scales, there's no power source or radioactive fuel to ignite into Godzilla's burning state. Without that burning potential, Ghidorah will essentially starve the atomic saurian until his heart stills. Godzilla, alpha among titans, is dead. Now this is not some type of state of hibernation or a coma. Godzilla is simply gone. Now I will say I have seen a few what ifs where Ghidorah spares Godzilla after draining him dry. However, I don't really see Ghidorah naturally allowing Godzilla to be on the brink of death and not just killing the titan. I mean, Ghidorah did allow Godzilla to retreat in the Gulf of Mexico after the Alpha's exposure to the oxygen destroyer. However, none of the factors present there are present here. For one, Ghidorah and Godzilla were both in an aquatic environment, one that Ghidorah wasn't suited to and would have no interest in returning to. This would all mean that the moment Ghidorah sensed Godzilla's death, he would have really no incentive to go double check the body. If you also add in Ghidorah's ravenous appetite for power, and there's no chance Godzilla wouldn't be drained dry. A death we know that can happen to the Godzilla species thanks to Dagon, who was drained dry by the mutoparasites. So ultimately, what does this mean? Well, for one, Hong Kong is quickly consumed by a malevolent tempest, before King Ghidorah flies atop the Apex facility and bellows an alpha call. All across the planet, titans awaken in mass. Rodan, Scylla, Behemoth, Kamazots, and more. But only one lets loose a cry of war. A rebuff to the Hydra's victorious cry. Fireballs slam against the city. Mechagodzilla is struck. Ghidorah is engrossed in a torrential inferno. When Machine and Monster gaze upon their attacker, they find Gamera amidst the carnage, having arrived too late to save Godzilla, but stubbornly ready to protect the Earth against the tyrannical pair. So now you're probably asking, does Gamera actually stand a chance? And the answer will not surprise you. No, with the caveat that I scaled Gamera to something close to like 80,000 tons, so that way he wouldn't weigh like wet tissue paper compared to his MonsterVerse competition. That buff would probably mean he is physically stronger than either Ghidorah or Mechagodzilla, at least in regard to pushing power. Remember, in his trilogy, he did after all clash against Legion, who was 5 times his weight, which means something like 400,000 tons in the MonsterVerse, and toss the Legion flower, which was 25 times heavier than himself. That ridiculous amount of scaling and probable copium aside, Gamera has never shown to be adept at close quarters combat, or effectively use that immense strength when something like the Super Gals could get the better of him. Mechagodzilla and King Ghidorah, by contrast, have shown some impressive close quarters competency. So even if we assume Gamera is stronger than both of them, and again, that is a big if, each draconic enemy can use their better mobility and technique to easily get the better of the Guardian of the Universe, which is exactly Ghidorah's plan. With a fresh call, Ghidorah orders Mechagodzilla to attack, peeved but hungry for a bit of vengeance himself, as each would remember Gamera's part in the Hydra's last death. The cybernetic titan charges forward. Terrapin eyes go wide, shocked at the speed on display, and just as Mechagodzilla readies to land a blow, a bulwark of bone careens into his side, knocking him away. Kong has arrived. On the matter of how, we'll have to go back in time. As explained in part 3, Godzilla never blasted a hole to the Hollow Earth. stranding Kong and the human cast, which is comprised of Dr. Lind's brother Dave, Dr. Lind himself, Vivian Graham, and the normal cast of GVK within the temple. The Apex team would surely be squashed as they were in the original timeline, so the remaining group is alone. That is until another Titan arrives from within the Hollow Earth itself. Mothra. This is actually the original Mothra, as seen in the movie Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. She sensed the current upheaval too, and while she never offered her services in fighting Ghidorah or Mechagodzilla in the films, let alone ventured out of the Hollow Earth excluding to recruit Godzilla, I would argue Godzilla's death is the necessary key to force her to act. As to how she knew where to find Kong, I would thank her dormant connection to Gia, and the Hollow Earth Iwi's foresight giving her a helping hand. I mean, the tribe would have been ringing the alarm bells for some time now, especially if they knew about Ghidorah's resurrection, at least the second one, and Godzilla's death. Now, there are no direct portals from the Hollow Earth to Hong Kong. In fact, the closest hub is in Southeast Asia. But as we saw in Cairo, there are dormant portals presumably across the globe. And Mothra, as ancient as she is wise, would no doubt know the fastest route to get to Hong Kong using these dormant connections between the surface world and the Hollow Earth. Thus we return to the present, with Gamera, Kong, and Mothra squaring off against Mechagodzilla and King Ghidorah. On the bright side in this confrontation, I can't see Mechagodzilla or Ghidorah really working well together. Remember in King of the Monsters with Rodan, once the Mold Demon was clashing with Mothra, Ghidorah really didn't care what happened to either of them. And while Mechagodzilla and Ghidorah are both Ghidorahs, I could see a bit of prejudice and arrogance coming from the, Ghidorah in flesh and blood compared to his mechanical ally. This superiority, I think, would ultimately lead King Ghidorah to zero in on Gamera, letting Mechagodzilla deal with Kong and Mothra. And this fight would go about as well as I explained earlier with Gamera. He's pummeled, blasted, thrown around with relative ease, and to the dragon's frustration, Gamera keeps getting up. Because while the Guardian of the Universe can't exactly win against the Bringer of Storms, he's not exactly going to lose quickly either. King Ghidorah's gravity beams are not greater than the output of a nuclear bomb, so Ghidorah certainly isn't vaporizing Gamera, nor can the dragon hope to batter the Terrapin into submission considering Gamera has been blasted apart, lobotomized, not to mention skewered. Ghidorah's best bet to end this fight quickly is to drain Gamera. However, the Terrapin shell makes that option relatively difficult. I mean, at any time Gamera can retract his limbs and jettison away, something he could also do if dropped from a great height. Though, remembering their last aerial battle, I doubt Ghidorah would take this conflict to the air. Ultimately, like I said, Gamera can't win, but he's also not going to lose fast either. This is great news for Mothra and Kong, who can focus in on Mechagodzilla and don't have to worry about King Ghidorah lending some assistance. Assistance the mech kind of essentially needs right now. Why? Well, Mechagodzilla lacks any repair functionality, so a prolonged fight with Godzilla, some combat with the first Mothra, and Gamera's surprise attack would leave the mech in a bad spot. The problem is, Kong and Mothra don't have any way to capitalize on that, growing fatigue. Remember, there is no Royal Axe here. In its place, Kong has an ancient shield made from a prototype Gamera shell, which wouldn't be great offense leave to carry out a finishing blow. It also wouldn't last too long under constant proton screen fire. On the flip side, Mothra does have a stinger, which could end the fight with a solid strike, but her age I think would keep her mainly dishing out quick hit-and-run style impacts, like in the film Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Chip damage, but nowhere near enough to ensure the win. So can the pair actually win this fight? Yes, but they have to rely on Kong's greatest trait, his intelligence. Noticing the hollow apex sight, Kong's mind formulates a desperate gamble, a plan he has no choice but to try. The great ape dashes into the hollow apex base with Mechagodzilla in pursuit. Within the enclosed space, Kong holds his ground and puts up a hell of a fight. This forces Mechagodzilla to unleash a point-blank proton scream. It's blocked, sending redirected beams of crimson light in every conceivable direction, but eventually the bulwark gives way. A lance of power strikes Kong, putting him down for the count. But as Mechagodzilla stands over the fallen ape, he finds not a defeated beast, but a smug foe. The ceiling, where the proton scream's beams had sliced through and diced through, are now starting to give way. A swift kick allowed Kongs to rush out of the collapsing interior where the stunned mech is entombed beneath the mountain that was Apex's base. Mechagodzilla isn't beaten, he's just buried, and with all the damage he suffered, he can't easily escape. That obstacle is enough to give Kong and Mothra time to assist Gamera. Beaten, bloody, and bruised, only sheer stubbornness and willpower keeps Gamera from just dying. So as Mothra momentarily distracts Ghidorah, Kong comes to Gamera's aid just as the Heave, piloted by Dr. Lin's brother, flies beside the pair. Vivian Graham, Gamera's human priestess / contact as a reminder, relays a plan to Gia, who signs the information to Kong. Gamera can win this fight, he just needs time. And Kong, without a shield, without any weapons, will need to buy Gamera all the time he can to summon the necessary power to beat Ghidorah. Kong's attention momentarily flicks to Godzilla's dead body, so realizing the true challenge he's up against, Kong grits his teeth and agrees. As Kong jumps into the fray against Ghidorah, who I will stress has every conceivable advantage, again, this is not a good matchup in the slightest for the Great Ape, Gamera summons unimaginable power from the earth. Mana fills the heavens, casting a glistening golden glow that captures Ghidorah's attention. Sensing the building power, Ghidorah understands something is going on, and both wanting to stop it and siphon that raw energy, he bats Mothra and Kong away, knocking each out of the fight. Ravenous draconic eyes zero in on Gamera, who is helpless to stop as Ghidorah charges forward and sinks his draconic jaws upon his flesh. Golden light envelops the very battlefield, and it's so intense that Ghidorah can actually feel the heat here. Yet to the dragon's shock, there is no power within Gamera to siphon. The mana did not enter the Guardian of the Universe. Instead, it ignited the burning wrath and life of the world's alpha, Godzilla. Now, before the inevitable occurs, you're probably wondering why I stress Godzilla's death if I was going to bring him back in this part. Even if the thumbnail does give away, this ultimate outcome. Well, I did so because I dislike the idea of just nuking Godzilla to bring him back to life like it's just a power-up. I also really don't think it'd work. Gamera, thanks to his unique power source, actually has the ability to bring back the living from that nebulous black void. He gave Ayana a life after all, after she did die in Gamera 3. And the bountiful amount of energy of the Earth's mana would no doubt be able to jumpstart Godzilla's energy-drained body with new life. A life that Gamera may not entirely see eye to eye with, and maybe come into contact with, but ultimately understands the necessity of. There must always be an alpha. And while he may not like Godzilla, thousands of years of working together has essentially made Gamera understand and give him the insight as to why he needs to be kept around. Burning golden power vaporizes Ghidorah to ashes, though Godzilla is careful not to atomize the trio around him. As quickly as Ghidorah re-entered the world of the living, he is just as rapidly beaten back to the world of the damned. Godzilla, though, is not done. He moves to kill Mechagodzilla, merely to find the robot escaped his mountainous tomb during the battle. Under the ocean's depths, the mech stealthily descended, and to Godzilla's dismay, he can't sense him. Though furious, it is a battle Godzilla recognizes he must seek at another time, because at the moment he is just utterly spent. I mean, he's been fighting Mechagodzilla, Ghidorah, been brought back to life, used all that power. He's at his limit. Though before he departs, he shares a look of reconciliation with Gamera, understanding what the Guardian did for him. They're not good, not even close, but the Alpha understands, perhaps with the clarity only death can provide, that a change in the status quo is needed. What this new world order is, you'll have to wait and see. Yes, this is a bit of a cliffhanger, and no, this is not the finale to the whole series. I will be doing more and expanding upon what the human cast was up to during this part. But I need a little bit of time. 4 parts is a lot to get in one chunk, and it's kind of like my limit at this point. So I will return to this universe, don't you worry. Gamera is not gone and not done anytime soon. Next up on the dock, we'll be going full steam ahead into the What If Godzilla Was Erased from the Heisei era timeline. Part 2 will be releasing in 3 weeks' time, so tune in for that. And I nearly forgot, I just wanted to give a massive shout out to EJ Su for making the banner. I kind of forgot this, kind of throwing this in last minute, but he did an awesome job. I've worked with him in the past, and I just wanted to give him a shout out. So thanks, EJ, appreciate the awesome artwork. But if you haven't already, remember to like and subscribe. I'm GrayShot151, and I'll catch you all next time. Until then, later.